That'd be great. Microphones and videos for non-member attendees will be disabled. And microphones and videos will be enabled as needed if we are going to be entertaining questions or comments at the end, and that's something that we will probably discuss as we discuss the agenda. And the meeting will be posted in accordance with open meeting laws as well. I just wanted to say that the state of Vermont is strongly committed to non-discrimination and equal opportunity. We believe in diversity that reflects the populations we serve, and we are committed to fostering inclusion and culture, an inclusive culture, sorry. I am Beth Fastige. I am the Commissioner of the Department of Human Resources. I am a governor's appointee on the committee, and I use she, her pronouns. And I'm going to turn it over to other committee members to introduce themselves.
Sure, I'll go next. I'm Representative Amy Sheldon from Middlebury. I currently chair the House Environment and Energy Committee, and I am one of the speaker's two appointees, and I'll send it to the speaker's other appointee.
So, Representative Seth Bongartz from Bennington 4. I am the ranking member on the House Environment and Energy Committee, and one of the two appointees from the House.
Do you want?
I'll jump.
Oh, go ahead, Senator. Senator Wendy Harrison. I'm the clerk of the Senate Housing, Economic Development, and General Affairs Committee, which is where these regulations were one of the places where they were in the Senate. And I'm also the vice chair of the Institutions Committee, and obviously an appointee of the Committee on Committees. And so I'll send it over to the other senator.
Hello, my name is Ann Watson. I use she, her pronouns. I am on the Natural Resources and Energy Committee, vice chair, and also government operations. And my apologies, I was gone for a hot second there. We're just passing it?
Yeah,
we can hear you.
Okay, I'm going to pass it over to Brittany. Have you gone yet?
I have not. Good morning. Brittany Wilson. I'm the governor's deputy chief of staff, and I have several policy portfolios, including Agency of Natural Resources, the Natural Resources Board, Agency of Transportation, Agency of Agriculture, Department of Labor, Agency of Digital Services, Department of Public Service. And so that is why I'm an appointee here on this board, as this kind of reflects nicely within my portfolio.
I think it would be great to hear also from Catherine and Stephanie, and it looks like Sabina's joined us. So.
Good morning. I am Stephanie Bracken. I'm the communications coordinator for the Agency of Natural Resources. I'm just here to provide some administrative support for the committee today.
Thank you.
Good morning. This is Catherine Russell, Executive Assistant for DHR. And thank you, Stephanie, for stepping in. We thought this might need to be an in-person meeting, and I was unavailable, but happy to help wherever I can with the team. And good luck with all the work you have ahead of you. Thank you for doing that.
I'm Sabina Haskell, the current chair of the Natural Resources Board.
Good to have you, Sabina.
All right. So we sent out a draft agenda, and we seem to be following that so far with introductions. Do we want to discuss the agenda? And Stephanie, are you taking notes just to check in?
Actually, I'm wondering, is Senator Watson, are you still with us? Because you're frozen on my screen.
Oops, I am still here. Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Okay, great.
do we want to talk about the agenda or approve the agenda?
Yeah, did you just post it?
I can,
I did just post it in the chat for anybody
just-
who needs
yeah.
it.
I had your suggested draft agenda, but it
Yeah.
wasn't. Yeah, okay.
that went into the, I think, the meeting invite as well. But we have introductions, elect a chair. 3 is establish, discuss committee processes and procedures. Then discuss a work plan and timeline, and included in that would be a job description, drafting and review, posting and advertising the job, an applicant review process, and then next steps. I think that one of the things that I would want to add to, but I think we'll discuss that in the work plan and timeline, would be our next scheduled meeting as well. To make
Can
sure
you
we
just
can have
say
that all.
who sent that latest agenda out? Was it Catherine?
It would, it's in the body of the meeting invitation that came forward originally from Stephanie, but I think Catherine Russell
Stephanie
or Beth.
She just posted it in the chat too. If you open up the chat in Teams here, she just pasted the agenda there, if that's helpful. It's a little
You
easier
can-
to read on the side.
Yeah,
Can you, all right.
got it.
So
Yeah.
we probably
Yeah.
ought to first, my sense is we should elect a chair and actually set the date for the next meeting before we lose Senator Watson. We should probably do those 2 things first and then go into the rest.
Does anyone see something that they would like to add to the agenda?
No, I don't.
Senator
All right.
Watson is frozen again on my screen.
Oh,
Yes,
no.
You've been
Hopefully
frozen
you're
the whole
still
time,
there,
but
though.
you're not,
Okay.
So
you're
I
not
can
in
hear
a
you.
bad pose, so don't
Oh.
worry.
Oh, good.
It's an interesting pose, though.
well,
It's
yeah,
interesting, but
you
it's
might
not
be-
bad.
You're
I'm wondering about
a thoughtful pose.
It's contemplative. Yeah, it's good.
You could
Um,
turn maybe turn your video on and off and see if that helps.
Okay.
There you go.
How's that? Any
Yeah.
better?
You're
Okay.
live now.
Oh, phew.
All right.
Okay. Well,
We're at
if I would be willing to be chair. I do have more support likely than the rest of you folks, especially those those in the legislature who are not, we're minute part-time legislators in the summer. So I would be willing to take on that task.
I think actually Senator Watson was going to get him. I think we were thinking it would be better to have maybe more appropriate to have the legislator be the chair, since this is about implementation of something that we all passed. And I think Senator Watson was actually going to make a motion.
Yeah, I was going to move that Representative Sheldon be the chair, if you are willing.
yeah, I appreciate that, and Beth, I really appreciate that you've stepped up and helped us get off the ground and organized. And I think actually in order to perhaps be more equal partners with you all, it makes sense for us to chair and work with you closely on this. Hopefully that's the best path forward for all of us. So
I'll second the nomination if it needs a second. And just with a comment, yes, thank you, Beth. And it's nice to meet you finally, for your offer. And my take on this is that this committee, because it's the first committee and it's a completely new process, is more of a policy committee than other nominating committees, where there are procedures and established. So I think we'll all work together very well on this. I know I'm willing to put in the time. I'm sure the other legislators are too.
all right, so there's a motion and a second. I guess we're gonna discover our procedures now and ask everyone to vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Maybe.
Aye.
Raise your hand. Raise your hands. We're not all. There we go. All right. Great. Well, thank you. So I think this actually is a good segue into establishing the committee processes and procedures. When I was thinking about the agenda, I also think one thing that's going to happen, because as Senator Harrison just pointed out, it's a new process, and procedures will kind of evolve as we go along. We know that we will be a public-facing process to the extent that a hiring committee can be a public-facing process. There will be some confidentiality that will exist in our process. So the public who is interested in following us needs to be aware of that. All of the meetings that can be public will be public, as far as I understand it. And we will, I don't know if members already have thoughts on the process and procedures. You know, right now we're being hosted by Microsoft Teams through the executive branch. We can, not sure if it's, we can do those administrative conversations behind the scenes and make sure the public knows how we're going to move forward with the hosting of meetings in the future. Do members have thoughts or perspectives on that they want to share right now?
I would just suggest that it doesn't matter to me which platform we use, but in terms of using our supports within state government to help facilitate and manage these, I would say, you know, Teams is our preferred platform, and that's what we all know and use. If another platformers wanted to be used, like Zoom, I would say that your all's staff, which I know there may or may not be available, they would probably be better equipped to help in that regard. So that's just my only like logistical comment about platforms and our supports needed.
Yep, that makes sense. Well, if you all are willing to do it, that would be great. And we can just stick with this, and then it'll be consistent. And I don't know, do we have any other guests besides Chair Haskell with us?
I don't see any other guests at this time.
And as far as, so with Teams, you have to be in the room to follow the meeting. Is that correct? You can't just do a YouTube.
That's correct.
Okay.
We can obtain a Zoom license if necessary, but I defer to Brittany and Beth on whether we do that.
Yeah, I think that if I think that what Brittany said makes sense. If you know, if you wanted to use Zoom, we would prefer the legislature do that. And if you want to have the meetings posted on YouTube, like that's you guys, the legislature is very good at that, has a lot of experience there. Our method of public posting would likely be on either the Natural Resources Board or the ANR website, as we just would make a place to be able to post those meetings on finding out one of those websites.
My sense is that that's great. And I think the people who are interested in this process will be going to probably the NRB website mostly. And so I appreciate that support.
Yeah, and I can't speak for NRB or natural or Agency of Natural Resources as far as doing that, but
We can do that.
yeah, okay. Great.
Other processes and procedures that we should talk about now. Like I said, I have a sense if we go through this timeline, they'll come up. But if folks have something on their minds right now about how we're going to work, now would be a good time, and it won't be the only time to bring it up. Go ahead, Senator.
Thank you. I have a question that isn't one of the questions that I sent already, and I wasn't going to bring any of that up at the beginning, just because of Senator Watson's constraints. But in terms of who we notify in advance, because I think that's as important as having a copy of the meeting or having that be available. And I really appreciate your comments, Commissioner, in advance about equity and inclusion. If we have I would hope that we could have a distribution list for notification of our meetings that would include Susanna Davis's office, among others, just so that folks would get a heads up and don't have to go and find our meeting on a website, wherever it ends up being. If that's something we could do, we don't need to you don't need to provide an answer now if that's something complicated. But if you understand what I'm asking, is that clear? That there would be an email distribution, a notification, just a heads up, basically, about our meetings before they happen, so that folks who are interested know in advance. It doesn't mean everybody's going to have a chance to talk. I'm not suggesting that, but I'm just saying it would be really helpful, I think, to have this process be accessible to others.
That sounds like I understand the motive for that, but I think it's challenging and we don't usually do that. And I think it would be hard to, so that would be like us identifying people, and then that's a little bit awkward. Like, I think then that means by definition, we're going to leave people out that we don't think of. So that would be my concern there.
Right.
So public is publicly noted, just like they are for all of our meetings. That's how it's noticed. So I think if if you want to spread the word that this is where the notices will be, I think that's maybe a better way to do that, is my first thought.
Right. I can see that. And this probably isn't the time to discuss it. Anyway, I just thought about it after the commissioner's comments. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Any other things on process for now? Great. Okay. So let's look at the draft agenda, or the draft timeline, which front and center for me as I looked through it is, the aggressive schedule that we're on, then we need to maintain in order to meet our goal, which is a lofty one. So I appreciate the reality check and the effort that went into this, and it's really helpful. So folks, do you have it in front of you? I actually printed mine out so I could follow along here at home. But here we are, kickoff meeting, and then it has development of the job specs with DHR and NRB, which I would also be happy to be part of that. And I'm not sure. So we would bring the draft to the committee, back to committee on August 12th. Actually, one thing we didn't talk about, I guess we will remain, do we want to remain flexible as in person, or just commit to being on Microsoft Teams? Or what's folks' preference in terms of in-person meetings and how important they might be to our process? Senator Harrison.
Yes, sir. I think in person, and I may be the one who's traveling, I guess, and Representative Bongartz, or he and I are probably the most we would have the longest commute. I very, very much, especially on important meetings, I think in person is much preferred. I think we make better decisions and we understand what each other is talking about in person.
And I would only add that if we stick to the proposed timeline we have, I will be out of the country August 12th. I could still Zoom or Microsoft Teams in. What's the verb you guys use for this? Zoom is so.
We say Zoom or Teams or call. To call.
So I could join remotely on the 12th.
And I think that some of the things we also perhaps can, I don't know, we can do and approve things by email as well. I don't, as far as even voting, like once we, let's say we get a draft job description, everyone's had a chance to weigh in, we get a final version, and then people can vote on the final version. And I think some of those things, if people are watching their email, can be done pretty efficiently through email, and then we can move the process along instead of having to meet and vote, which I would be perfectly fine with doing voting by email. And I think that some of the things like the job description, who we're going to interview, are like the job description doesn't probably need as much discussion, but who we're going to interview, probably that is a time for potentially in-person discussions.
Yeah. Okay, so as we go through, let's talk about that. Which meetings we think we can, which of these items need to be actual meetings, and other folks have comments on the in-person. There's a comment here from our support, virtual in-person when calendars allow. I think is Teams amenable to that?
Provided that you, it is provided you have the right room with some good technology.
Yeah. So,
If I can also.
and
Go ahead.
sorry, go ahead, Senator.
Oh, I just want to make sure folks are aware that, like, so I start teaching at the end of August, and I just have limited time off. And so being able to Zoom or Teams or whatever is very useful to me to help make that happen. But I agree, like, especially for important meetings, it would be helpful to be in person. I just may not be able to be there in person every time.
Yeah, and I agree with the observation that for some of these meetings, we definitely should be in person, and I can commit to that when I'm, back resettled from vacation. Okay, so
But we-
go ahead.
So I think we've decided, it sounds like we've decided that our next meeting on the 12th will be virtual.
Or it's really a deadline, I think, even. Go ahead.
Yeah, I don't think we've discussed when our next meeting can be. And I know that people are pretty limited as well until we were trying to schedule this meeting. And the first date we could get everybody together for free was on the 22nd. So maybe that's the next thing. Do we want to just kind of run down the work list and see about if this overall arching timeline makes sense? And then kind of zero in on the dates after that?
Yeah, that sounds good. But just for clarification, the one I have says 21st.
Yes.
Okay.
Well, okay.
Yeah. Okay, great. All right. So order of maybe the timeline is what you're suggesting first. So we'll go through and we need to draft the job description and the specs for it. And then that's the first item here. Post the job, come up with interview questions. How long do the posts usually stay posted in the human resources world?
We, for a classified job, we generally post, we're required to post for 2 full weeks, 10 business days, but, many times, especially with a job like this, it's, people are not necessarily gonna be knowing about this work. We may want to do some advertising. So I would suggest certainly longer than 2 weeks. I don't know if we need 4 or 3 or the right amount of time. 4 actually does make sense, just because it's a new job and it's not something that, while the process has been public, I think that it's not well known necessarily outside the Montpelier bubble. And if we want to get the best candidates we can across all the states, posting it longer is probably helpful. Especially since it's a long lead timeline. It's not like we're trying to hire somebody for October.
Oh yeah, and I actually do think I support that. I'm glad that there's a month here, and that's seems almost like the minimum we'd want to do, and so we'll start there. Yeah.
Yeah, the month timeline in regular trying to hire is kind of long, especially if you're trying to get somebody in there really quickly. But I think we have a little bit of time here, so it makes sense to post it longer, especially if we can see 2 weeks in that we have no candidates.
Hopefully that's not what we're going to see.
No.
Okay, and then we would close the post, and promptly thereafter, we would all get to look at who has applied, and then there's a September meeting for reviewing the candidates and picking who we would interview and finalizing the interview questions. So, and it looks like a couple of weeks for interviews. Then the second round would be scheduled in October for the candidates who make that first cut. And then we make the recommend the first week of November to the governor. And yeah, the governor gets a while, almost all of November and December. And then to seat the board. I can't remember, does this require I think it might require the approval of the Senate. So that presumably happens the first week of January. So some we need to add goes to the Senate, I believe, into here for final approval. Folks have thoughts on the tasks that are identified in the timeline. Senator Harrison.
Yeah, I guess, I just want to make sure that Senator Watson is okay with the August 12th date before, because you only have half an hour, right, Senator Watson?
Well,
Sorry, go
what-
ahead.
I think
Well, because
August 12th is really going to be more of a deadline than a meeting. I think it's going to be, we're going to respond to the job specs.
okay, good.
via
Then
email.
I do think it's important that we, before that time, have at least some sense of how many candidates we're looking for. And if we're looking for, as I said in my email, at least 2 per seat so that the governor has options, and how we're going to allocate the different types of experience that are required. It could get pretty complicated, and I think we should have that conversation before we narrow the specifications for the jobs. Did everyone get my email from yesterday?
Yeah.
Okay, great.
I think those are important, and actually your first point is important. Are you leaving us, Senator Watson, at 8:30?
I am. That is the plan. Wondering, I wondering if the draft timeline that I am looking at is not the most recent one, because when is our next? It's not clear to me which of these is the next scheduled meeting.
Right, because it's not. We're going to talk about that right now.
Okay.
And
Okay.
since you are going to leave, if you could just give us the framework for what generally works for you in the coming 6 months, like what we're looking at here.
Oh,
And-
yeah. Okay.
or-
Well,
Not even, but 5 months, whatever.
Do you want me to share the screen to be a bigger timeline so you can see, everybody can see it, or do people have that pulled up?
I have it pulled up.
I'm looking at it in my email, but
Okay.
just generally speaking, so I have more flexibility up until the 21st of this month, which is when school starts, and then I am out at 3 p.m. Every day except for Mondays, and then I'm out at 4:30 on Mondays. So there, I may have some free blocks that I could, hop on a Teams meeting. And actually, I don't have that in front of me. If you can wait like 20 seconds, I'll be right back and we'll have that. Is that okay?
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. In the meantime, maybe folks can be looking at which meetings they think we should really be together and in person, and versus what decisions and like what we could do via just reviews and comments via email.
Okay, I should have time between, well, so on Mondays and Thursdays, I should be free after like 12:30 for a Zoom meeting. And on on Tuesdays and Fridays, I'll have a window of time right around lunch, like between 11:15 and about 1 or so.
That was on Tuesdays and Thursdays.
Tuesdays and Fridays, I have the window of time in the middle of the day, and Mondays and Thursdays is generally after 12:30. I should be fine.
So, but then you said after 4:30 on Mondays, so that is confusing to me.
Oh, I'm sorry. You're right. So really Mondays between 12:30 and 3.
Okay.
My apologies. Yes, thank you.
And Thursdays the same?
Thursdays I would be free 12:30 and later.
Okay.
All right, so Thursdays are good for you, basically. Thursdays are the best in the afternoon.
Yeah. Sorry, my life is so complicated. So it's the nature of being a high school teacher.
Thank you for being a teacher.
Yes, thank you. I will try to make whatever whatever else works. But I am also going to have to hop off. Do you have enough information to work from that?
But
Think
maybe
so.
just before you do, we should try to get the one meeting in, schedule the one meeting before the 21st.
Okay.
So that we can have you for one. So
Okay.
I'm actually
Yeah.
fine on the 12th if people want to meet then.
Well, I thought we weren't going to meet until the week of the 21st.
Okay.
We're not.
Okay.
I mean, we
Okay,
could
let's
do that
get that.
beforehand, but
No, we're not meeting. We're going to review the job app description.
Okay.
Although I want to now we'll get back to Senator Harrison's point, which I think is an important one. So
Okay.
I think, and we have enough, is August 21st looks like it is a Wednesday, but it's also the first day of school. So we may go to the 22nd since it's a Thursday and would be better for you. I assume the dust perhaps will still be in the air, but closer to settled.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. So let's just say, right, for now, we'll do the 22nd
Okay.
as a meeting, next meeting.
Sounds good.
I have a conflict at 3 p.m. on the 22nd, but
Okay. So we could,
that's fine, I think, right?
Yeah.
That would work.
although you, well, let's work that out, but we'll figure out in person and Zoom. But yes.
Okay.
All right.
Okay. Thank you
Thanks.
all.
Thank you. Okay. So now I think we can go through the tasks as they relate to actual dates and the need for meetings.
Okay.
So I just to be clear, I think we'll spend the first couple weeks of August on the draft job specs. And I think the process, well, I guess I'm curious if there's anything that's already been in process, or if I mean, I know one of the things we did in passing this legislation, and Commissioner Haskell was really helpful in helping because she was a member of the Cannabis Control Board. So it's kind of modeled on that. And so there's probably some baseline documentation that you have for being just a professional board member that exists. Go ahead, Commissioner.
oh no, go ahead.
I was I was gonna jump in here and just mention, looking at the timelines and what we were trying to achieve, I did ask Sabina and Beth to have their teams work on drafting based on the legislation passed and kind of our state job specs. So they have drafted or starting to draft some stuff so that then we could just jump in and start reviewing and not, start from scratch. So that's fairly close, I think, for us to be able to share soon. There was just a couple pieces on salary. There's a review that DHR has to do, but I mean, we can just leave that piece if that's the only piece we have to iron out. We'll leave that blank and we can always, iron that out over the couple weeks. But we have a substantial job spec for the committee to review.
That's great. Thank you so much. It'd be helpful for me to get that in the next couple of days so I could print a hard copy and bring it with me.
So
When do you leave, Representative Shelton?
I leave Sunday
Sunday.
and I'll be the 5th to the 20th. But I mean, it'll be Canada. It's not like I'm in, Thailand. So I'll be able to communicate some.
Oh, that's good to know too. Just in terms of accessing teams outside of the country, I think there's some firewalls there. So I'll make sure that doesn't happen to you.
Thank you.
yeah, even email is difficult out of the country.
Oh,
I mean, not because of it's intentionally challenging, just because the state has security precautions, which is good. It's good to know about them before you go, so that you don't get stuck.
I haven't ever had that in Canada, and actually, I don't think we're doing a Teams meeting before I get back. So I'll be back the 20th, and I'll be probably in Montpelier on the 22nd. I mean, I think, let's talk about. Go ahead.
I would just make sure that you do have access to your email, and if you don't, reach out to us with a personal email address so we can get that to you in your personal email address if you're locked out of your state email for some reason.
Yeah. Yeah, good. I will
So,
do
because we do want to get that, I mean, I think the most important thing is getting that job posted, because if we don't have it posted, then our timeline just
Yep.
gets pushed way back, or we get crunched from getting the, from that 30 days that we'd really like to do.
So the next thing is now August 22nd. Commissioner was prescient in her noting that. So committee meets to discuss, approve interview questions. To me, although Senator, you advocated for in-person, but then also said you have be done by
Well,
3 on that day. So.
My other one is a state obligation, so I could probably do it.
Okay,
I would be there.
What do folks think? I mean, Representative Bongartz, you're the other person with the longest drive. Is this a meeting that we want to be in person for, or do we want to be on Teams?
Can I add, or
Yeah, go ahead.
can I just, because the questions that I am asking, I think really need to be answered around that time. About how many people we're looking for and how we're going to allocate the seats.
Well, the first thing is in statute that we will not appoint anyone from, no two people from the same county. Right. So we have a geographical filter first. And then we do have other characteristics that we want to be represented on the board. And I think some of that is outside of our control in terms of how many people apply. We can't, I'm sure both the commissioner and the deputy are both nodding. I mean, and we all are very aware that we'll be blessed to get good candidates. However many we get will be a real boon. So I don't think we can control how many. We'll have to respond to how many after we know.
Right. And I'm not suggesting that we can control it, but I think, and maybe it's because, I mean, I wasn't part of those conversations, but having a clear understanding of what kind of experience counts for those 3 categories. I mean, the way I read it is it's 3 different categories. I think it's better for us to have understandings of what counts, so that when we're evaluating individuals, we have we have more clarity, and we're not not coming up with the standards while we're evaluating individuals.
You're talking about having maybe like a scoring rubrics for the applicants.
Yeah, or just more detail on like environmental science. I mean, I know what I think it means. I don't know what other folks think. And then land use, policy planning, and development. To me, that includes developers. It could be also city planners, although those might be in the community planning. I just think that we're establishing a process that is going to continue for years. And I think we need clarity at this time, and that it's worth our time to determine that. I think that's part of this job.
I can jump in just a little bit as far as, when we look at in human resources, we're checking candidates for minimum qualifications, and that's not, the plan is to send all the candidates, I think, to everybody on the committee. But as far as minimum candidates, we're very open with the minimum qualifications. So if there's a question that something might not count, or if it doesn't count, those type of things typically will get sent on for the hiring manager. And I consider like we're the first stage of hiring managers to look for. So, looking at all of those things, that I don't think, I think it's going to be difficult for 6 people to actually agree on what each thing in the legislation means. I think that there probably are folks who were more involved in the legislation that, maybe there are things that discussed in committee meetings that would be helpful for other committee members to enlighten us about if there are things that mean certain things. But I think we do need to look at the plain language of the legislation too. And, but in the same sense, we want to keep it, if you have a good candidate and it says that there was 4 years required, and that candidates can demonstrate that they have 4 years. It might not be 4 consecutive years. It may be, you know, however they can demonstrate that and the candidate can demonstrate that. I think that we want to be as open as possible to be able to get the best candidates, because even though there are some experience guidelines, sometimes you can have someone with 30 years experience that might not be a great fit for the board, and somebody with, you know, a smaller amount of experience that can. So experience is important, and it's very important, as it's been, you know, as it's spelled out exactly what that level of experience is. I think that we want to make sure we're not discounting people that could do the job above and beyond those.
Yes, yes, I
Yeah.
agree with everything that you said.
Yeah.
I foresee that there will be situations where we have similar candidates, and I just want us to be as prepared as possible to evaluate different strengths. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm sure we'll have candidates who meet both, you know, 2 or 3 of these categories.
And we do want to also remember that we're looking for diversity of experience as well, and a diversity of individuals. So it's
Sure.
from backgrounds, to people with different backgrounds, racial backgrounds, ethnic backgrounds, geographic backgrounds, age, ability, status. So as diverse as possible. So sometimes, yeah, so I think those will all be, when we're discussing candidates to move forward, who all will be there to go. I don't know that we're going to be up. It's going to be very challenging to set that out in front, but I agree. It's an important conversation to have, and we don't have much time. So,
Right.
For me, Senator, I appreciate that you're bringing this up, and I think what I'm hearing you say is that, you know, we don't want one category to dominate this board, and I think the intention of the legislation is that that not happen. That as the first cut here, are looking to make sure that we have representatives. For me, if I'm thinking about those 5 members, I would want each of those broad categories at least represented. I wouldn't want one of them to not be there, right? And, you know, I appreciate that you've lumped them in there in a certain order or whatever, in 3 buckets. But I think for me, as a member of this committee, as I move forward, I'll keep that in mind. I do think, yeah, thinking about how that plays out in the process, and the final, how we move forward with both balancing that and then those geographic constraints, will be something we will talk about, I expect, along the way.
Right. So could the August 22nd meeting just include that sort of discussion in addition to interview questions?
But again, so much of it is going to be up to who we get applications from in what areas of the state. So
Sure.
it's just going to be something that happens, I think, in our process.
Oh, I understand. But I guess just one more plug is I've been in a lot of hiring situations, and there are certain things it's better to discuss before you're looking at individuals than when you're looking at individuals, and just have like desired characteristics clear. And that very well could be in the job specifications. I haven't seen those in the descriptions. So just typically there are things that are better to discuss before you see the people than after.
Yeah,
That's,
I think you just, maybe that's where it will come out, is in the job specs. And so we all need to engage in that, and
yeah.
be sure that it is representing the way we're thinking about this process.
Okay.
That's the time I think that it'll come out. So we'll be watching our emails closely and communicating in that way electronically.
And thanks for doing it so quickly, folks who are working on the job specs.
Yeah.
So
So then August 20. Go ahead,
you
Representative.
had asked me about August 21st. I actually think I'm in Elkhart that day, if
22nd.
the schedule holds. So 12:30 would work. I can either do a Zoom from Montpelier, if that's, or a Teams from Montpelier, or in person, I think, at 12:30, which is the time that I believe we're talking about, given
Yeah.
Senator Watson's schedule. So that would work just fine for me either way. And
Represent,
go ahead.
you said the 21st, but I think we were
I'm
thinking
sorry,
the
22nd.
22nd.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
I meant,
Okay, good.
Okay, and I can be in Montpelier that day, so I think that would be great. It sounds like Senator Harrison can be there, and that works for you, the commissioner, and deputy, both too. 22nd, great, great. Okay, so we'll do potentially an in-person meeting that day. Senator Watson may ironically be the one in Montpelier who joins by Teams.
Yeah.
Um, and then the posting closes 4 weeks after we post it, hopefully on this timeline, September 16th. Then we get the applications that really quickly. So that's a realistic turnaround, that one day.
Yeah.
So that was kind of a it can be very quick if we don't have best team do an initial review of minimum qualifications.
Mm.
And I think one of the things that we can do is keep an eye on how many applications are coming in. If in a ideal world we get flooded with applications, we can have DHR do an initial scan if we want. But I think reality is we'll be lucky to get a lot of applications. I don't think we'll be overwhelmed with them. I hope I'm wrong. But I think in that scenario, then at least I would be very curious to see all of them and not have that initial review by DHR. And it also just speeds it up because they can just send everything to us.
That makes perfect sense to me. That's great.
And we'll see if if we start to get applicants that are clearly not qualified, we can let the committee know what we're seeing as well.
We could actually, to that point, if we could get the job specs done and everything and get it posted earlier than the August 14th date, that would be great too. It would just give us a little bit more time, to have it posted. And Beth, is it possible to send around an update maybe at the end of the first week and let us know just the number of applicants that we have, and that way we're just keeping a weekly or every few days, just so the committee knows, and we can figure out if we need to advertise, push more. I think it would be helpful.
Yeah, I think that's probably fine. One thing, once you have a deadline, you tend to often you get more towards the end. So I don't think we need to panic if we're not getting a lot, but we can also talk about maybe one of the things that we talk about today, or we maybe not even do how we're going to publicize this, what we typically do, and if there's anything extra we want to do to publicize. But I think we're still on timeline now, so.
Can we talk a little bit about what you do typically and what we can,
Yes.
like?
Yeah, so jobs are posted on the state of Vermont website. It's a modern application process that's used by many organizations internationally. And employees submit their resume online, and then once we post the job, it gets it's on our website. It's scraped by websites, and it gets posted it's on Indeed. It's on what we call, Circa is the name of the company, but it goes out on diversityjobs.com and up to 200 depending on job boards across the country, including colleges. Gets not that some of the college job boards also go to like college alumni. So a recent college graduate probably is not going to have the experience to do this work, but so it's posted pretty widely. And then we also suggest if there are organizational groups, like if there's I don't know a lot of the things in this space. Let's say there's a Vermont Developers Association. If for committee members potentially to be sending it out to, or if they know of places where this would be a good place to post it, that we could send that posting to them. We can also do some paid advertising. We can pay to advertise, in 7 days, or one of the things, we have a people of color network where a lot of organizations will post jobs on. I would probably suggest posting in the people of color network, potentially 7 days online, but a lot of those places also. We can also do sponsored postings in Indeed. So there's more that we can do. And we could wait and see, we could wait for a week and see. Some of those are like 2-week posting, you pay for 2 weeks, or sometimes you pay for a month. So we could really have, if there's ideas that this committee or other members of the public might have of places this could be posted, if you would send that over to, you can send that to beth.fastdigi@vermont.gov, or catherine.russell@vermont.gov, or stephanie.bracken@vermont.gov, or Sabina or Brittany. You can send it to any of us. We can get it to our talent acquisition team, and they can get that. Or you can just send that posting to them directly and ask them to do it. So we really encourage people to post it on their own personal social media. So, I mean, especially the state representatives and senators, folks in your area that might be interested. Hey, get the word out there, talk it up.
We could do that on the state side as well. And we can also draft a press release and make sure the media is aware that the job is open, and so we'll get a little bit of a push from that.
Oh, yeah, that's a great idea. I love
Yeah.
that. 7 days in particular seems good, and the press release, and yeah.
And so, yeah, I think 7 days is probably one of the most costly, but we can circulate that around as well. I don't know what we have. I mean, Sabina's budget, if she has money for advertising, you don't have to weigh in now. I don't know that they're,
We can figure out how to, like, 7 days is not red down here.
Right.
right.
We have to make sure that we're hitting the markets in the hinterlands somehow.
And generally, most people hunt for jobs online. People are really, as long as it's in Indeed, then like people can find it.
Yeah.
It also gets posted on the all our jobs get posted on the Department of Labor website as well.
Do you have to pay for LinkedIn? That's a good site.
Yes.
Okay. And Sabina just wrote no money for advertising.
We know who to ask.
I'm curious what the cost,
Yeah, really.
what is the cost for LinkedIn?
I don't have, I can get you I can get that and get that back to the committee.
Okay, that's great. That was very
Yep.
helpful. Okay, so we're up to reviewing candidates in the 3rd week of September. I do think that's an important one. And maybe once again, we could sync up with a Thursday afternoon. It is September 24th. It would be the 26th. Shall we say September 26th at, maybe
What
1
was
o'clock.
just looking at thinking of Senator Watson's
Yeah, Thursdays were good for her.
Tuesday schedule.
Oh, 11:15 to 1, but that's in the middle of her teaching day. And I was thinking, if we want to be in person, Seth, do you know the LCAR dates that you're already in Montpelier?
No, don't know that far ahead. We moved around, especially when we're out of session.
Oh, okay. I thought when I was on LCAR, it was 1st and 3rd.
No, we haven't been.
Okay.
But it's a good thing to shoot for, because there's some chance I'll have the clerk.
Yeah. We don't have to commit, but why don't we pencil in the 26th?
Okay.
Yeah, that's also the big Senate event, the golf tournament, which I wasn't sure if I was going to go to. Is that
On the
day?
26th?
It's on the
We-
26th.
We can give you an out.
Yeah.
Ah,
That's
I
true.
don't think she can say what her opinion on a public meeting.
All right. And then hosting the interviews. It seems important that we be present for those.
I
So
think
No, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, that's gonna depend on number of candidates. There might be, we might in the first screening, we may have 30 candidates. And getting, we're gonna ask questions, we may wanna split that up. And if they are first interviews, I would suspect that probably they're probably gonna be relatively quick,
Mm-hmm.
under an hour, and we probably are going to want to do those on virtually.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, right. You make that, yes, I totally.
If we're going to host 2 rounds of interviews, the second one potentially in person, but those interviews are gonna take a lot of chunks of our time, and I'm not sure how honestly, I'm not sure how Senator Watson's gonna be able to
Hmm.
block the chunks aside for that. I mean, we can do those evenings or, early there's other opportunities in late afternoons, but we want to get those done in a, fast, and we're going to want to, I think in the next meeting, we're going to want to schedule those interview times and time slots and figure out how we want to tackle that as well.
Yeah, I was going to mention, I'm glad you said that. I would not be adverse to, I wouldn't, if we had to meet at 3 and go till 6 or whatever, I'll do that, because when it's important for us to be in person, that is. For those few times it's going to be especially important. If we start late, so that Senator Watson can be there, I'm willing to do that.
Yeah, I am too. And I'm also hearing, and I agree with the commissioner, depending on how many applicants we get, it'll drive whether we even do 2 rounds. But let's say we stick to this hopeful schedule that we get so many interviews that we do the first round and we do it on Zoom, because I think you're right. That makes perfect sense. And then we cull from that the folks we want to have more in-depth conversations with in the second round. And those would be more for sure in person. And I second what Representative Bongartz just said. I can be flexible to be Montpelier a little later, earlier, things that accommodate all of our schedules.
I can too. And but because these are going to be full-time jobs, is my understanding. So people might want to not have an interview from their current job. So I mean, I've just in municipal in the municipal world, we often have interviews in the late afternoon, early evening, to allow people to not have to do it from their work.
Okay. I feel like the rest of it, we're kind of getting into that realm of we're going to have to just adjust as we know more, and that the broad timeline here is great. And folks have other thoughts on the timeline.
Yeah, just one. I really appreciate the ability to do this quickly. That was one of my concerns. November 4th and 5th are the election day, so we might not want to schedule that day as the finalizing the list.
Give us
That's
something to
really, I mean, that we should be focused and just ready to make big decisions.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know. I don't think we need to, or maybe look at the Thursday of that week. That might make sense, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
The
Well, I think
7th.
that's good. A good point. And sure, we can look to later for this sort of. I feel like we're penciling this in at this point.
Right.
But yeah, sure. The 6, 7. How's that, Senator?
That's fine. Great.
November 6, 7. Okay, great.
Thank you.
Yep. Okay. Great. So we talked about the job description and where it's at already in terms of the work plan and the posting. We're pretty far along here. So applicant review process. Do we want to go further into that right now? I think we may have covered it, but okay.
I think that was the piece about whether or not we wanted DHR to review, and I think that'll be again one of those things we'll know as we get closer in the number of applicants.
Mhm. And then, so if there's folks with next steps, if not, Sabina, I'm going to put you a little bit on notice because I would just welcome any thoughts and perspectives you have, having gone through this with a different board and then now being on the Natural Resources Board yourself. If you have thoughts you'd like to share with us, I would welcome them.
I think the timeline looks pretty good, and I think it's very doable, believe it or not.
Mhm.
And if you have to do some of the interviews by Teams or Zoom, particularly the first round, that's okay. I mean, I know you want to be able to meet the people, and that's important, but we did everything virtually, but of course it was during the pandemic. So
Mhm.
I think
All
it's doable. I think their biggest what if is the number of candidates you get and the geographic dispersity of the counties. I think with 5 full-time professionals, you're going to want to have at least 15 candidates. I mean, you don't want to be picking from 7,
Yeah.
I mean, 50 would be great.
Which
And-
I think underscores our role in helping get the word out and letting
Right.
folks know this is an opportunity and how exciting it is.
Right.
And even, yeah, and in this job market, just as, someone could potentially all the way make it through the very end and then still make a decision to not accept the position.
Yeah.
So that's very much of a possibility. Like, I would be very concerned if this committee sent 5 candidates to the governor.
Yeah.
That would be very concerning because the number of people that drop out like at the last minute, even for these, what we consider in Vermont, very good paying professional jobs, those people also have a lot of options other places. And, it's not, it's something brand new. So I think for some people that's super exciting. But for some people, it's also scary. It's a big change in what they're doing. So it's going to be, it's working for government is very interesting and fun, but you just really need to be able to make that shift. And so we'll see, right?
Yeah, I mean, we just interviewed for a position at the NRB this week, and we had 4 people we wanted to interview. 1 person never responded, and we wanted to interview the other 3. 1 dropped out, so we ended up only interviewing 2. To your point, Beth. Yeah.
Okay, well, that's great. It definitely sets us up as the nominating committee to get the word out. Other thoughts before we wrap up for this meeting?
Just to be clear, with the, how are we creating the job description and how are we going to review and approve it? What are we doing these next 2 weeks? Who's doing what?
Go ahead.
So
Commissioner.
that will be sent. The executive branch is creating a draft of that. As soon as it's final, we have a final draft, we'll send it. You'll see it from Brittany or myself, or probably Stephanie, going around to this committee. Maybe one of us will send it to you, depending on who's around, for review and comment. So then once you get it, if you could review it as soon as possible. If we think we do need a meeting to discuss items, not an email, but hopefully we can get a good email string going and replying to all to discuss. That job description makes sense to me. And I think we can do it. Oftentimes, if you can do it in a shared document, that works, but I don't really have good, whether you do it in Google Drive or OneDrive, if somebody has really good, we're not all the same real employer as far as technology goes. So we're using OneDrive. I don't know what you guys would be using in there, and if we can share back and forth. So that might not work
I think
technology wise.
Yeah, it's funny, it just came up for me in another process. We should have OneDrive also. And maybe Brittany, I saw a light bulb go off. Was there a thought you had on whether we can do a shared OneDrive? Like access each other's?
Yeah,
I can ask Kevin more what his solution.
I can do a test. I will just send out an agenda and see if you have access, try to create access for you guys to share and see if it works.
The other option is that we can send the draft out and suggest an order of review, or we could determine that now too. And that way there's some version control. So if we sent it out and decided who was going to review, send it back with, track changes and edits, and it goes on to the next person. We can do it that way.
Well, for me, I like to, sometimes we feed off each other. I think, well, actually, I have a question about when do you think you will be able to realistically have that a draft to us?
We can probably send it out today. I mean, again, it's draft. The bulk of it is done. There's a few items that we'll have to determine and figure out as we go, but it doesn't have to be done for, today. There's no reason we can't send that around.
I think that'd be good to get all of our gears into it and keep our momentum from today's meeting a little bit. And then we can begin the process, and maybe just, again, we'll get a sense of whether we could share it, and then how much. Maybe there'll be a lot of comments. Maybe everyone will be happy with it. So I think we'll just see how close we are. And I think the deadline, I think folks need to not wait till August 12th to review it. So we need actually the internal deadline, is next week. By the 9th or even the 8th, probably, like if you haven't engaged, then we may be thinking you're not going to. So you may have agreed without intending. So I think folks understand that we're time sensitive and that they'll provide their feedback. But we'll make sure that Senator Watson knows that too.
Beth, maybe how long does it take to get something posted? Is a 2-day turnaround realistic for your team?
It depends on if everything's all ready for it to go, but if I don't know who if they've been working with a talent acquisition specialist already, which I think you have, and that our team, then that once they have it, it's usually within 24 hours. During a weekday, they can usually get it posted.
Talent acquisition specialist. That's a good one. All right, great.
Amy, what is your email address? I was just going to send you a document in OneDrive to see if you can open it.
Sure. It's a Sheldon at leg.state.bt.us.
Sorry.
State.vt.us.
A Sheldon at state.bt.us.
At ledge.
At ledge.
leg.state.bt.us.
I don't know why. I mean, because I'm typing this in separately. I mean, it's kind of funny that I can't figure it out, but
I actually don't know why we can't have the same email as the executive branch. Wouldn't that make sense?
That's a whole topic for another day.
That's another commission. Nominating.
That's right.
Committee.
All right, let's see. And I'm going to see if I'm just going to see if you can edit. I'm just going to send it to you.
Yep, great.
And see if you can. It would have gone as an email to you. And just to do a little test and see if you can sign in and open it. So I just invited you to edit the document.
Okay, I'm here.
And I don't know if you can do that, because if that would be
great.
I mean, live tests are not really.
Can we do that too and have the track changes
Yes.
on?
Yes.
If we're all like, if I make any edits, I will absolutely make sure track changes are on so that that's
right.
Transparent and clear as to what we're changing and editing.
And you can heavily use the comment button.
Yeah. Oh, I'm not getting it.
Okay, so it could be an issue with me sending it to you
Why don't I just send,
wrongly.
why don't I send you a new email and then you'll have it for sure.
Well, I have it. It's just I'm
Oh.
typing it in separately. So it's not, I may have messed, like I just,
I can help afterwards, Beth, if you'd like.
I
Yeah.
know.
Why don't we do it?
No,
Why don't we do this?
I-
We can do this. We'll do it offline, and I'm around till 9:30, and then I need to leave my house, but I can figure it
okay.
out before then.
ledge.state.pt.us.
Yeah.
We can send some tests
Yeah.
around, figure out what might work. Worst case scenario, we can do that. Order of
Right.
operations.
Yeah.
Each take a turn reviewing, and we could even send it around again, Rep. Sheldon, just so that if you were editing first, you could see who was, editing last, and the group share it around too. So to your point, if you think of anything based on other people's edits, that we all get an opportunity to review more than just once,
Yeah.
But hopefully we can make a shared document work. That would be easiest.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be easiest and best. And I just sent you an email, Beth. I don't know if that helps. Hopefully you got mine. All right. So with that, thank you all for an efficient meeting, and we will. Oh, I got it.
So I just want to point out, thanks to Catherine and Stephanie for helping out. Stephanie is actually bailing us out in a pinch on some of the logistics here, and we don't have her for the duration. And so just wanted to say thanks to the two of them, and especially Stephanie for stepping in and helping us out, getting this first meeting set up for us. And we will work to set up the logistics for the next meeting,
Okay.
as well as those on calendars.
There's a little authentication problem that I'm having, and it gave me a code to use that doesn't work. So I also could take the time. I do have a Microsoft Authenticator app that I could enter and get in, but I'm not going to do that right now.
Right. Okay.
But there will be some technology things to get through.
All right. And
Yeah, it's hard when our networks are separate.
I can also ask our IT person, because I needed to set one up for another legislative thing I was doing, and I'm sure we also have access to Microsoft shared docs. So we'll figure it out, I think. All right. Anything else before we adjourn?
Oh, good.
Nope.
Thank you.
Thank
All right.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you
Thank you.
all.
Nice to
Thank
meet you
you.
all.
You too. Bye.
Care.
Thank you.